Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We've got a lot of different stories to break down today, including an update on Ben Simmons and a surprising team that is currently in pursuit. Keith Smith joining me as always. Well, I guess not as always. Welcome back, Keith. We didn't get to see you on the last show, but glad everything sounds like it's going okay health-wise with your daughter and all that. I know a lot of people were asking about it. Got hurt in a soccer tournament, but sounds like she's going to be okay. So that's great news to start off the show with.
Yeah, I had could not believe the number of people reached out, whether it's through the comments on the video or people sent emails and tweets and things like that. So very, very much appreciated by the entire Smith family. She's going to be fine. We have a little goalie in the family, and she dove and made a save and got kicked in the face. Unfortunately, right up here, above her eye. There was a lot of blood, as you can imagine, from any cut on the face, and it looked probably worse than it really was. But she's tough. She's a lot tougher than her dad is, and she's hanging in there. She wanted to go back into the game, and the trainer was like, "Absolutely not. You're not. You're done for the day." And there's only about 5 minutes left. So she had done everything she could to preserve a shutout in a 0-0 tie against a club that is two divisions higher than her own. So we're pretty proud of her. She had played her best game of the very early season here for us. So yeah. But mostly thank you to everyone who reached out. Could not appreciate that more. It meant a lot. But happy to be back. Everybody's healthy and sound, and I'm ready to talk some hoops.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it then. Well, actually, wait. Before we jump into it, we are like on the cusp of hitting 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel.
Maybe I should miss more shows.
So if you are, I don't think that was the key there, Keith.
I don't think so.
But if you are not subscribed for some reason, you're watching this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to do an extra live stream once we hit 10,000 just to kind of celebrate. We'll do an AMA. It's going to be a lot of fun. So again, we're almost there, almost to 10,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed right now, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to turn on notifications as well. All right. Now
I offered to do that live stream in a bikini, but Trevor and I decided we didn't want to immediately go back down to like 5,000 subscribers. So I will not subject you. I promise I will not do that. And I promise once we're past COVID, all the hugs to everybody who subscribes that you can get if we meet in person.
That's right. Whenever we do a watch party in person or something like that, we will have to thank everybody who got us to 10,000. All right, let's kick things off with, well, the big story that's been bouncing around the NBA the entire offseason. Ben Simmons on his way out of the 76ers at some point. It's going to happen. We just don't know when or where just yet, but another team that is interested in him, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And we had heard some whispers about them maybe being involved, but that is something that is now persisting. A little bit odd, given that they've already signed a number of bigs, Jarrett Allen getting a bunch of money. They've made a bunch of moves here that wouldn't suggest that they're on the verge of landing Ben Simmons. But then again, if they believe he is a true superstar, you're not going to let like Lauri Markkanen stop you from going and getting a Ben Simmons if that move is indeed on the table for the Cavs.
And in some ways, that might even help you because now you've got a shooter that you put on the floor with him, because that's what you have to be able to do is balance out his decided lack of shooting by putting other shooters on the floor. So, yeah, I think it's we have said for a while that a small market team should be the one who goes kind of all in, because you're not going to sign an all-star talent like Ben Simmons just in free agency. It's not going to happen. It's whether you're Cleveland or Minnesota, who continues to be my favorite destination for him and the one I think that makes the most sense. But yeah, Mark Stein was the one who had it, so we know that it's really good information. Not that other reporters don't have good stuff, but when Stein is dishing on trade stuff, I think we know it's really solid stuff. So yeah, I think just keep an eye on it, right? And his main thing was they're I forget exactly how he put it, what he says, they're pushing hard or continue to be engaged or whatever it was. So yeah, it's my guess is, I mean, we're 3 weeks from today. We're recording this on Tuesday the 7th. 3 weeks from today, training camp's open around the league. 6 weeks from the season starting. This is going to happen sometime, my guess is within the next 3-4 weeks, because it's just going to continue to be a circus until it does go down.
Yeah, we've been saying we can't see them actually starting the season with him still on the roster. I suppose if they really are far apart in terms of the offers they're getting and what they want, maybe they go down that path, but it's going to get more and more difficult, particularly if we get to the point where training camp starts and Ben Simmons follows through with that threat to not report. Then everything really gets complicated for the 76ers, because then every question is going to be asked for every single player, and it's going to be about Ben Simmons, and that's going to be a situation that the 76ers are not going to want to go through. So we'll see
Now,
where
on the
this all
flip
winds
side,
up.
well,
Yeah.
one other thing, Daryl Morey went through this last year with, or I guess he didn't go through it, but his former club went through it with James Harden last year. So, yeah, I mean, it clearly wasn't Morey, right? He was already with Philly, so that was a misspeak on my part. But it's yeah, it's not completely uncommon to see a guy go, and it kind of drags into the season. But my guess is this team would like to get this done if it's going to happen. But I don't think that doesn't mean Morey's going to take a not great deal just to get it done. He's not going to give him away. He's not going to, he'll tell him, all right, fine. Then you don't play and you sit until we're ready to go. So yeah, but is he, what is it? Yeah. What is it? I always blow that quote as the sands through the hourglass or whatever it is. I got to start watching those soap operas now that I'm home during the day.
As the world turns.
Yeah. I think that's what it is, right? It's something like
something
that.
along those lines. But
I remember my grandmother watched them when I was home sick from school. She would put those on. They came on after Price is Right.
I was going to say after Price is Right. That's what you got to watch. You get your 7-Up and you watch the Price is Right. That's what you do when you're homesick from school.
That's it. Yep.
All right. Keith, in your neck of the woods, Jonathan Isaac is unsure whether or not he's going to be ready for the start of the season, recovering from a torn ACL. He was there. I saw him in Summer League. He was walking around, obviously not doing anything, no workouts or anything like that we saw. But was walking around just fine in Summer League, recovering from that torn ACL. That was terrible to see, because he is such an exciting young player and so just fascinating. The combination of length and skill set and all that. You want this guy to be healthy and see what he can do if he can really put it all together. And I think if I'm the Orlando Magic, I'm approaching this as though, you know what, if you're not ready to start the season, if you're at 95%, just wait. Just wait. There's no reason to rush him back at all.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. The Magic they know they're going to be bad this year. They fully own that. It's going to be a very much a transition year. A lot of figure out what we got kind of situation here. They've got a lot of really young players, a couple guys who are extension eligible coming up, guys who are probably not going to get extensions unless they're team friendly, but then you're kind of evaluate them all year, going into restricted free agency. And then Isaac is still in some ways, I guess maybe Jalen Suggs will overtake him, but Isaac is still right now kind of crown jewel of what they've got on this team, because he is their best chance of a guy who maybe makes an all-star team someday, of the guys who have played so far. And I continue to maintain, if he's healthy and the team is good enough, this guy can win Defensive Player of the Year. He's just incredible on that end of the floor. There's really not anybody he can't guard. All the way 1 through 5, he is very switchable, or at least was before the injury. So we'll see what that looks like now. But yeah, it's one of those things that's interesting, because the hardcore Magic fans, and yes, they do exist. I know people don't believe that they do, but they do exist. They are a little frustrated, because they're like, all right, this is a year plus now. This happened, if we remember, happened in July of 2020 in the bubble is where he got hurt. So there are some people kind of wondering, like, what are what is that? Or I guess it was August of 2020. So, but it'll be a year. Sense. So that there are people wondering, like, well, what's happening with Jonathan Isaac? Why are we not, there? Like, what is going on? How is he not back yet? But it's just going to be, as you said, the organization's not going to, if he's not 100% ready, he's not coming back. He's not, my guess is he'll probably rarely play back-to-backs this year. Yeah. 3 and 4 nights, that's probably out of the picture as well. There'll be liberal rest days, because this team's not, they know they're not a playoff team, and they're not really trying to win a lot of games, but they also do want to have him out there enough with the other young guys that you can evaluate fit and see how all those pieces come together. So he'll play, but maybe Christmas we see him instead of right at the start of the season.
Which, again, that's that's fine, right? You're
Yep.
not losing anything right now. If you're Orlando, you want to make sure he's 100% healthy and you don't get into another injury situation because you rushed him back. There's just no reason for that. Staying on the injury topic, T.J. Warren. Man, one of my favorite wing scores. His
Yeah.
start to the bubble was ridiculous. He was just lighting people up. But TJ Warren still out and now out indefinitely, dealing with a left foot stress fracture. And apparently, it is not healing as quickly as they would have hoped. So TJ Warren not with the Indiana Pacers to start the year.
Yeah, that one kind of came a little out of nowhere
Mm-hmm.
because I would have assumed. I mean, he missed almost all of last season, by the time it went down. So I thought, we would have seen him back on the court. He's a very important player for that team because his ability to play the four as well as the three, that unlocks some of those small ball lineups that they like to go to when they only use one of Sabonis or Turner. So I think that part gets a little tricky. So in important to remember, this team lost Doug McDermott
Mm-hmm.
off of last year's team, who was also another guy who played a lot of 3 and 4 for the Pacers. So they're not going to have him now. They did draft Chris Duarte. They signed Torrey Craig. They still have Justin Holiday. Of course, Karis LeVert's got good size, so he can play up a little bit. So they still have some versatility, but this has got to be considered a disappointment to not have Warren to start the year. And then they filled out their roster today, though, with their final piece. The final training camp spot. Nate Hinton, a guard with some size, played last year with the Mavs on a two-way contract, is joining the Pacers, likely on a non-guaranteed camp deal. So that'll bring them up to the training camp preseason maximum of 20 players.
And the Pacers were not the only team to add players. We've got a bunch more to get into here, but let's go to the reigning Western Conference champs, the Suns, who signed Chandler Hutchinson. Hutchinson, look, good size, good strength, the shooting, the shot efficiency, not quite what you would have hoped for there just yet, but still lands with the Phoenix Suns. I think that's a decent spot for him. He got traded to the Spurs in the Russell Westbrook trade from the Washington Wizards, and then the Spurs released him, and now he winds up in Phoenix. And look, there's worse places you can be than kind of an up-and-coming team like the Phoenix Suns. You know you can never have enough wing players in the NBA. Teams are always looking for them. So I think this isn't a bad landing spot for Chandler Hutchinson.
Yeah, and they do have an open roster spot of their 15. I would have thought it would have gone to a big,
Mm-hmm.
just because they're not going to have Dario Saric. We know that. He's going to be out for my guess is the entire season after tearing his ACL in the finals. So I would have thought they would have gone with another 4 or 5 kind of guy. Maybe they feel like Jalen Smith is ready to take more of a step forward. They did bring Frank Kaminsky back, so maybe they're going to run with him. Cam Johnson has done well as a kind of a small ball for them. Mikal Bridges can play up when Crowder's out of the game, so maybe that's just how they're gonna mix and match it and put it together. Because you were being a lot more kind than I will be. I don't think Chandler Hutchison has showed he is an NBA level guy. You're right. He's got good size, but
That's what I'm talking
kind of about all he's got.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be kind of surprised if he even makes the Suns out of training camp. And they still have both of their two-way spots open at this point. Phoenix does.
All right. Let's see. Another move that took place. Well, I guess let's just dive into it. The Bulls did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
The Bulls did a lot of things. So let's start with Alize
Build out
Johnson.
that roster.
2-year, $3.6 million deal with the Bulls after getting waived by the Brooklyn Nets. They did that in order to make room for Paul Millsap, LaMarcus Aldridge coming in as well. What do you think about that signing? Because I think that's a nice one for the Bulls.
Yeah, so let's combine it right with the
Yeah.
Stanley Johnson signing too, and then Matt Thomas also signed, and then they added Ethan Thompson as well. Thompson's definitely a camp kind of guy
Right.
for them. They'll look to get him to their G League team. Matt Thomas, maybe he makes it. They could use another shooter. It's starting to get a little tight towards the back end of that roster, but maybe he makes it. Maybe he's a guy they convert into a two-way if he's willing to do that. But yeah, Alize Johnson and Stanley Johnson, couple wings with good size.
Mhm.
I like Alize Johnson more than Stanley Johnson at this
Yes.
point. He had that 20-point, 21 rebound game last season towards the end of the year for the Nets against the Pacers, who were his former team. So for a guy who's about 6'7", he's got good size and can really bang the boards and do some stuff there. So this is a team that could use a little bit more depth. They could use another guy who's kind of a four-ish coming off their bench, because right now it's kind of Derek Jones Jr. and then Marko Simonovic have that spot. So I like that one. And then Stanley Johnson, he's never quite put it all together. He should be a wing who can really defend and get after it. But it's it's one of those things where it's just his shot has never come quite along enough to really develop into being that 3-and-D guy. And I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Thomas actually makes the team over him, because at least Thomas we know is a shooter.
Yeah, exactly. This guy can shoot the basketball. Spent some time with the Toronto Raptors last season. Matt Thomas can shoot the ball, and shooting is in demand in the NBA. We talk about how teams want wings. They also want shooting. And if you can hit those outside shots like Matt Thomas can, that gives you a chance to stick on some of these squads. And I guess maybe big picture, that's something we should mention here. Like a lot of the guys that we're talking about, there's no guarantee they're actually going to make the team here, right? Like Alize Johnson, okay, got a 2-year deal. Yeah, he's probably sticking around. But a lot of these guys that are coming in, non-guaranteed deals, they're really just training camp invites. We've hit that point of the year where you're getting like Team X signs this player, but that player's really just coming in to work out with the team, then maybe wind up with the G League squad. And so with some of these names, don't just assume, oh, this guy is a lock on this team. No, that's not, we're not in that part of free agency right now.
Yeah, no, it's pretty rare that Millsap, Aldridge, those ones are different types of things. But any of these guys you're hearing, one, it's rare that they even make the team out of training camp. Two, if they make it, then they have a big impact. That is even more rare. Kind of a guy who I think might be one of the last guys to do it and actually have an impact with his team is Kenrich Williams, who's actually been pretty good in his career for both the Pelicans and the Thunder. So that's what you're looking for, is a guy like that, or a guy who maybe shows just enough that then he gets to the G League, he gets a 10-day call up later, something along those lines. So and that's what the next guy, I think we're going to talk about, Trey Scott to the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was with the Cavs in Summer League, looked better in Summer League than I think he did at times in college. He's a 6'8" wing player. He kind of played more as a power forward at Cincinnati in college than he did on the perimeter. He averaged 11.4 points and 10.5 rebounds per game, and just under a block per game and a 1.5 steals. So kind of an active defensive guy, can do some stuff there, but on this Cavs team, very unlikely he's going to make the team out of camp. Their roster is basically full now, but good camp guy, or maybe a guy that again gets converted into a two-way contract, and he could be there on a two-way at the end, because that's what ends up happening with a lot of these guys. They sign when you sign an Exhibit 10 contract, you're going to hear that term used quite a bit. That generally means that there's language in there that allows that player to be converted to a two-way contract, assuming he's eligible. Players have to have 4 years or less of service in the NBA to be eligible. So just something to keep in mind as we roll through some of these names here.
And the idea behind the Exhibit 10 contract is to be able to give a player a little bit of incentive to, should they get cut from the team, which in almost all cases they do, they come to training camp, they get cut, there's financial incentive for them to then go to the club's G League affiliate and play there. And I believe they have to stay for, I want to say it's 2 months, and then they get X amount of dollars in exchange for doing
50K.
So. Yes.
It's almost
the 50K
is what they give them. Yeah, every once in a while it's a little bit less than 50K, but almost always $50,000. You go, you become what's called an affiliate player. So as long as you finish training camp and then sign with the G League, this is kind of a little bit of a misnomer. Player outside of the G League Ignite, which is a very different thing that I think we need to kind of put almost in its own little box over here. The regular G League franchises, players sign with the league itself, and then they are allocated to teams, whether it be through draft or free agency,
it's like
sort
MLS.
of way. claim. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, you sign with the league versus the teams. But if you're an affiliate player, what happens is you sign with the G League, and then as an affiliate player, you're immediately assigned to that team's G League team. So where Cleveland has the Charge is their G League team. So that's my guess is what will happen with a guy like Trey Scott. And there's going to be a whole bunch of these guys, the guys we just talked about. Ethan Thompson with Chicago. Indiana has Kiefer Sykes and Terry Taylor, a couple guys they brought in. So you're going to see a lot of that go on here over the next month. And then what happens sometimes is you'll see teams will play some games at the end of a roster because they might be like, you know what? Wow, that Trey Scott guy looks pretty good. We want him as our affiliate player, so then they'll sign him. So they were the last team to have his rights, so then they get him as an affiliate player and block the other team. And we do see that happen every year. So that's just a little bit of the fun roster maneuvering at the end of the preseason that we like to see.
Well, let's run through a couple of the other guys. There's one kind of biggish name that I want to finish with, but some of the other guys, Joe Wieskamp on a two-way to the Spurs, Keita Bates-Diop got a 2-year deal with the Spurs as well. We don't know what guarantees are on that or anything like that. And Tremont Waters to the Bucks.
Yeah, Tremont Waters, 2-year player, 2-year two-way player with the Celtics. The last couple of years, he's a little guard. The challenge right now is the Bucks don't really have a roster spot for him, but the Bucks could use another guard off their bench. So maybe this could be one where you could see this getting converted. I'm sure he doesn't want to spend another year on a two-way, but if that's the best thing for him, then that'll be what happens. And he'll pair with. I'm ready. I've been practicing this one. Sandro Mamukelashvili. Yeah, how'd you like that? That's a real name. I didn't make it up.
There's times when we're going through this and you're throwing names at me, and I'm going, this is a creative character, right? Like this is made up. Nope. This isn't a real person.
Real guy.
That name, I know there's no way you could make up that name off the top of your head. So it must be real.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was made up, it would be like Keith Smith is what I would say his name is. It'd be something simple like that. My brain is not smart enough, especially after this past weekend. But yeah, he's a big guy out of Seton Hall, who they drafted, and then they signed him to a 2-year two-way. So Waters may join him on the Bucks bench as a two-way player. Yeah, and then Keita Bates-Diop. So there's a two-way success story. He got moved up. We'll see though. The Spurs, right? So they waived Chandler Hutchinson. That brought them down into range now where they needed to be contract-wise, except they're still +1. They still have one too many guaranteed contracts right now. So we'll see if Bates-Diop got any kind of guarantee in his deal or not, or if they're just giving him a little bump for being a good guy for them for the last couple of years. So some maneuvering left to go for the Spurs. And then, yeah, Joe Wieskamp was one of their draft picks designed around always going to a two-way. All right, let's get to a name people have probably heard of. And I love this guy, man. I just want him to get a chance.
Harry Giles. I mean, look, it winds up a non-guaranteed deal with the Clippers. And I don't like, okay, so the Clippers, you've already got Ivica Zubac, who's locking down the center position. And most of the time when Zubac was off the floor, they didn't even want to play another center. They wanted to play small. But Harry Giles, there was a point where people saw him as the top prospect, right? The top guy. Yeah. And now here he is on a non-guaranteed deal. He's certainly talented. I would like to see him catch on, even if it is with the Clippers, because I'd hate to see, like, he just had so much potential. People were so excited about him. I want to see him salvage this thing and figure it out.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, and I apologize if I'm misspeaking here, but I think he tore his ACLs. I think both of them, or he tore the same one twice. I'm fairly confident that he had 2 torn ACLs before he even got to the NBA. So that's part of why he's never been what people thought he would be. And he got drafted late in the first round. Traded immediately to the Kings, played kind of sparingly over 2 years for the Kings, but flashed a little bit. Was with Portland last year, barely played at all. I just looked it up. He only played less than 10 minutes a game and only 38 games total played. So, only 348 minutes altogether. One thing interesting, though, took 23 3-pointers out of his 97 attempts. So that's kind of something to keep an eye on, I guess. There, he's a pretty good passer. The Kings put together a highlight tape of his passing at one point. He's somebody that Celtics fans have wanted for years because he's
Yep.
very, very close friends with Jason Tatum. They became good buddies from their Duke connection. So people have always been like, "Can we get this guy on the Celtics?" But yeah, now what's interesting with the Clippers? Serge Ibaka back.
Hmm.
Ivica Zubac, as you said, nothing else really for center minutes. Maybe Morris, Batum, maybe Justice Winslow is a super small ball five. Um, but yeah, maybe Giles does break through and make this team because if he does, it's just tax money for Steve Ballmer, and they already saved a bunch when they did the Eric Bledsoe trade. So
Yeah.
maybe that's what they're looking at here is we can afford to bring this guy in now, and I hope he makes it because I think there's potential there because my guess is they're not going to push Ibaka very hard. He didn't even make it through last season. He was hurt
Right.
by the time we playoffs rolled around. So probably not going to push him hard. Maybe Giles does finally get that chance to break through. A couple other Dukies on that team too, right? I just really noticed that Winslow, Luke Kennard on that
Hmm.
team. So maybe that's all he needs. He just needs some buddies around.
That's what it is. That's all it's going to take. But I think you're right though about Ibaka, and that's something that maybe I wasn't considering enough. That Ibaka, if they try to just bubble wrap him and think, hey, you know what, we're going to need this guy come playoff time. Maybe
Yeah.
Kawhi comes back by then. That's when we really want to be at our best. And so if that's the approach that you're going to have for the Clippers, you do need some kind of another big that you can throw in there. So perhaps that's an opportunity there, a window opening for Harry Giles, and we'll see if it's something that he can really seize this opportunity. Would be nice to see him stick around. Usually, by the way, guys, usually that's not how this goes. Usually,
Yeah.
situations like this, we hear in a few weeks, player has been cut by this team, right, or has been waived
Yep.
by this team. That's usually how this goes. But fingers crossed. Of course, we would like to see him stick around in the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I know a large portion of our audience is crossovers from Lakers Nation. We
Hmm.
always appreciate you guys. And maybe I'm going to anger them with this, but
Oh
the Clippers are not going to be terrible
no,
this year. I think there's this impression out there by some that the Clippers are going to be awful. They don't think they're title contenders this year, not unless Kawhi pulls a miracle in his back earlier than anybody ever expected. And I don't even think they'll be good enough where like he could come, riding in and save them, right at playoff time. Like I don't think they're going to be the seventh seed that makes a run or anything like that. But I still think this team has a chance to be a playoff team when you get down
absolutely.
to that level. In the let's call it the 6 to 10 range in the West. I think they're right there with those teams, even without Kawhi. I mean, Paul George is still pretty good. They have real NBA players, really kind of 1 through 10, even without Kawhi. So that that goes a long way. I know that that sounds funny to say, but I do think they've got legitimate rotation guys up and down this roster. So I do think there's a chance that they're actually still a good team and maybe make the playoffs outright, not even have to fight through the plan.
Keith, you know what this is, and I know this is going to be a complete shocker because we never do this. It's an overreaction. As a basketball
Oh yeah,
community, it's an overreaction when we say, oh, the Clippers aren't even a playoff team. Now, it's along the same train of thought as saying, oh, Ben Simmons, well, now they have to trade him. He has zero
yeah,
trade value. CJ McCollum, how many firsts are the Sixers going to have to throw in order to get the Blazers to do CJ
yeah.
McCollum for Ben Simmons? Right? I mean, that's the kind of discussion that we've seen going on around just the basketball community, and it's because we tend to overreact to things, right? We blow things out
A
of
little bit.
proportion, and I think that's what's happening here with the Clippers, where people are saying, "Oh, they're not even a playoff team." No, they're still a playoff team even without Kawhi. If you're saying they're not a playoff team, then you didn't pay attention to the playoffs last year and see what
Yep.
they did without Kawhi. Now, I don't think they can
Yeah,
sustain that
still
over an
almost
entire
made the
season.
finals.
Yeah, they almost made the finals without him. All right, look, they're
Yep.
still a good team. They're still a quality team, and again, that feels kind of gross sticking up for the Clippers and all that. But again, as a basketball community, sometimes we do this where we perceive a rise or fall to be far greater than it actually is because
Yep.
sometimes the middle just isn't quite as exciting.
You know what else I think in the West too? If you look at it on its face, Houston and OKC, you can feel pretty good saying, yeah, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, I don't have to go very far or work overly hard to convince myself that they could be a playoff team. Even San Antonio, Minnesota, Sacramento, I can see versions where it all kind of goes right and those teams make the playoffs. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what we do in the West is in the East is starting to turn now there as well, as they've got
Yep.
better depth of teams. But especially in the West, we look for reasons to take teams out of the playoffs versus necessarily putting teams in. And I think it's one of those where, all right, well, if I'm saying the Warriors are in, if they're healthy, someone has to be out. All right. Oh, the Clippers, that's easy. No Kawhi, take the
Yep.
Clippers out. So I think that becomes almost our snap, like just go with them. And maybe that is how it goes. But, who knows? It also hasn't been the most healthy team
True.
in the world. A lot of their main guys miss time, and if that's the trouble. I always say this. I say this a lot. So everyone, when the first guy goes down, most teams are okay. You can get by
Yeah.
being down one guy. So what happens if you lose the second guy? And then if you ever lose the third guy, then what do you do? Now you're into, guys having to play roles that they're not ready to. And Paul George has had some trouble staying healthy in the past. Sometimes when he has to take on more of a shoulder, more of a load, it becomes a little harder for him too. So that's one thing where I just wonder a little bit is this team, is it just going to become too much? And could they be the team where kind of the wheels come off, it all falls apart, and they're looking at it in mid-March and say, yeah, let's just start shutting guys down. It's better if we miss out than push all the way through, and then we'll be back strong in 2022. Maybe that's how it goes.
And that could very well be the path that we wind up heading down. But I just don't think that the knee-jerk reaction of just, oh, they're not even a playoff team. That's taking things too far.
It's too far.
It's also going too far to flip the coin here. It's also going too far to just say, oh, the Lakers are clearly the one seed in the Western Conference. There's so many different factors to look at here, including rest. How much teams are going to rest players? How much teams are just going to focus on the playoffs and getting healthy for that? So just something to keep in mind as we head into the regular season. Like, try not to overreact to some of these things. Sometimes just a team, they are what they are, and we don't have to assume that they're going to make a huge move in either direction, either better or worse.
Let me throw it. Maybe this is a hot take, and I don't really do these, but I'm going to do it anyway tonight for you. I think it is more likely the Clippers are a playoff team, a real playoff team, so a top 6 team, than it is that the Lakers are the 1 seed.
Skip, is that you?
It's right. Yeah. I didn't yell quite enough.
That's right.
Throwing papers around and getting all crazy. I don't think the Lakers are going to push that hard for the 1 seed. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are coming back with this. Hey, we're going to show you how good it works with all this older roster and these 3 guys together, and we've kind of said there'll probably always be at least 1 or 2 of them on the floor and those kind of things. But I can't see them going into Charlotte on a night where we really need a win to keep pace with Utah. But, LeBron's kind of banged up and Russ's knees bother him a little bit. But yeah, let's make sure we get that win against Charlotte on a Tuesday night in late January. I just can't see it. It doesn't make sense, especially last year where I don't want to take anything away from the Suns, of course, because I think they were a worthy finals team and earned everything that they got. But a big part of the Lakers was just they hit the point of no return with being injured. Yeah, it was like it was too much to overcome, and I think especially at this point, LeBron and AD no, and I bet no one's ever been able to really kind of dial Russ back on that. But I think if anybody's it's going to be LeBron. He's going to be like, hey, we don't need you going coast to coast 15 times when we're up 25 on Detroit, on a Sunday night here in December. Let's chill. You don't need to go crashing into Kelly Olynyk's clumsy ass and hurting yourself.
I can just see LeBron just grabbing Russ, put him under his arm and being like, dude, stop diving to the floor. Right. We're up 25. Yeah. There's 3 minutes left.
I could see him saying, hey, do you remember when Kelly Olynyk broke Kevin Love and almost
That's
ruined our
right.
shot at winning a title. Like, come on, let's be smart here. Or I guess did maybe ruin their shot.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's beating that first Warriors team, but I digress. That's another story for another day.
And you know what? Coming from the Lakers side, I agree with you. I think that they are not going to push hard for the 1 seed because I don't think they care that much about it. I think they care mostly about being healthy for the playoffs, developing chemistry along the way, and that's it. If the 1 seed happens to be sitting there, if it falls into their lap, great, they'll take it. You know, but it's not. I don't think if Frank Vogel were to list his primary concerns on the season, his goals of the season, finishing as the 1 seed is nowhere near the top.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll push for home court advantage. They'll push to not go in the play-in. Just too many things can go wrong in the play-in. You know, you hit the wrong team and you have a bad night and they have a good night, you're out. I mean, that's kind of the fun of it, right? And that's why we all love the NCAA tournament and gives us a little bit of a taste of that in the NBA without kind of screwing up the whole thing. Because I like the NBA playoffs the way they are. But yeah, I do think it is one of those where, yeah, they'll push to be in the top 4, but beyond that, I don't think, and I don't think they're going to have to push very hard to be in the top 4. I think they've clearly got more than enough depth and talent to be there. I've been kind of starting to loosely play a little bit with my where do I see teams slotting in a little. We're nowhere close to ready to unveil those yet, but yeah, that's just kind of things that have been floating around a little bit.
Absolutely.
With me as I with that. So yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? We looked at this episode and we said we've got a bunch of quick little, quick hitter news spots. We've got the Simmons thing to lead us off, and then we've got some really fast takes that we're going to get through. And here we are. We're actually one of our longer shows recently because once we start talking basketball and the season is coming up, it's hard to stop. But
because I missed a day.
That's
I was
right.
firing
That's
off
what
all
it
these hot
is.
takes, and my wife and daughter were like, "Would you shut up already? We don't want to hear it.
Save it for the show."
Yeah. And thanks to Ron for pinch hitting. I appreciate that. The other day, hopefully he doesn't Wally Pip me here and take me out of the lineup here, or I don't become Wally Pipped as he's the Lou Gehrig in that situation. But yeah. Guys, a couple people did ask. We will get back to the previews. Hawks and Mavericks are next. We're probably going to record that very soon here. I think now
tomorrow probably.
Knock on wood, barring any other injury situations here. I think we're both back to normal now with school and work and all that stuff, and we'll get back into all that stuff here soon for everybody. So we will get all 30 teams done, even if we have to rapid fire a few at the end. They will be done.
We will get there. So be on the lookout for that. And don't forget, everybody, do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, make sure you follow us, whether you're on, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, make sure you follow us and leave us a review as well. We certainly appreciate it.
5 stars.
Yes, 5-star is what we are always looking for. And
course, 10K.
That's right, 10,000 followers. So subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video. Till next time, everybody, stay safe and see ya.